Jill Miller and her beautiful children, Lila and Asher, who's out of screen right now, but probably will run through. We are at the Jill Miller headquarters, and I am so stoked. You guys are in store for an amazing experience for the next hour and 15. You'll learn all about Jill. Jill is my big sister, even though our sizes, we could never wear the same clothes, but you're gonna hear all about her. Asher, come here. Can I pick you up? Okay, you gotta see this cute little midget. He's so cute. Come here. Hi, Asher. He's wearing our new toddler t-shirt.
It's so cute. It's so soft. The cotton's amazing. There's a spine on the back. Come on. If you're in a natural
Yes, you need to
wear
wear
that shirt.
Yes. But you're in store for an amazing episode today. Hi, Lila. She has got style, that girl. Behind the camera is Chianti Story.
Hello.
Yes, and service dog Koja is with us today.
Koja.
And Robert is in the background.
There you go.
That time.
It's ending. They're going to now. I promise the screaming's over.
It's okay. Well, this has been a really cool kind of come to fruition. I just had a child about a year and a half ago, and seeing Jill with her two little ones she's been a great role model, literally. She's got a book called The Role Model, if you want to check that out. So she's been a great role model for me, which is why I call her my big sister, because seeing her raise her children has been very inspiring for me. So, is it nap time for you guys?
It's nap time. Yeah, you can go.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys. Take a big stretch break. But if you want to look at the room here, in at least this part, we've got the Ferns, Skelly.
Back.
Dr. Skelly is usually at Nubanar's headquarters. This is Dr. Skelly's brother.
This is osteo.
Oh, osteo. Okay,
yeah,
osteo.
It's actually osteo nuevo because we used to have. Well, there's actually real osteos over there. You can see he's disarticulated. He was a piece of. It was not well put together, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So we replaced him with Osteo Nuevo, the next model, and we just call him Osteo.
I like it. So osteo and Dr. Skelly would get along.
For sure.
My Dr. Skelly's got some ligamentous issues. His arm is kind of getting lagging a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Got the leg sign going on. So, okay, we're gonna this is gonna be one of the most nerdy episodes you'll experience on the first season of Mighty Normal Podcast. Again, listeners, Jill Miller here. Jill, tell us where you're from and what got you here to Studio City. More on the family.
On the family thing. Okay. More on the family.
More on the family side.
More on the family than the professional.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. Yeah.
Knowledge.
Okay, nice. Totally different.
It puts me into a cool spot. I've noticed when I say I'm from New Orleans, people's eyes light up because it is a really special place. So I grew up in New Orleans until I was 6, but then there were lots of moves after that, lots of divorces. So I ended up in Florida for a really short time.
Right.
And then I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So
Okay.
I really consider...
What age did you start in Santa Fe?
Santa Fe was 7 to 17.
Okay.
So when I graduated from high school, I then moved to... My mom and I moved back to New Orleans after I graduated from high school because we had no money and we had some big problems.
Yeah.
And so we moved back to New Orleans and I moved to Chicago to go to school. I went to Northwestern.
Oh, right. Okay. Nice. That was a school I looked at as well, the Villanova grad. You guys have already, if you've been listening, you've heard that many times.
Yeah.
Okay. So you went to Northwestern and then you didn't stay in Chicago?
No, I stayed there for 2 years after I graduated, and I was doing studying massage, but I was a performer, so I was doing dance and performance art, really doing it. I was a riot girl, like back in the day, just like raging against the machine, and but I was really just a natural performer, and I love everything about the theater of performing arts, or I did at the time. And so I had to decide whether I was going to make a life as a performer, certainly not in Chicago, but either in LA or New York. And I decided to come to LA because the yoga scene in LA was booming.
Off the
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I would I'd be okay performing in any place, but I had this other calling, which was the healing arts, and I thought I would get more out of it in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I moved to Los Angeles, specifically to Santa Monica. I found a rent control apartment, 7 blocks from the ocean.
Right near St. Monica's, right?
That's right, Reed Park.
Okay, nice.
Yes, right there at that church. I could hear the bells every day. Amazing place to live. And then I met my husband like 10, 15, I don't know, many years later.
Yeah.
And he had a house in what we call the Valley. So if you're familiar with
The Valley.
LA, this is Studio City. It's over the hill and not by the beach. And
Is it this
down
the
in
Valley?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I always got confused with that because my husband, when I first met him, had come from the Valley. But like northern.
It's a big valley.
Yeah, I'm just like,
It's gigantic.
Small valley?
No, it's not Queens. It's mega, and it's full of just really bad air quality for the most part. And you can always, when you're driving down the hill, you can just see the soot or the dust, in the air. And you're like, I'm about to breathe that for the next 2 weeks until I go back to the beach.
So you came out here. So I met Jill. I think I emailed you 6 years ago. This is how I met Jill. This is kind of. So I saw Jill on the Mobility WOD videos because Jill's been many Mobility WOD videos. And she was this lady doing diaphragm mobs and teaching people how to breathe. And I was a PT student at the time, or just finishing PT school.
Oh.
And I remember my friend Deanna DeToro was like, "You gotta see this lady. She's so rad, like she's teaching people how to breathe and doing diaphragm mobs, and like, one, you gotta meet Kelly and you also gotta meet her." And I remember thinking, because it was my last year of PT school, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna really like PT. I gotta find someone who is doing what I wanna do. And that was like advice I've been given, like find someone who's doing what you wanna do and then talk to them. Because they're humans, like they have to start somewhere. And so I drove up to see Kelly. I was just like, he was hanging out in a parking lot, coaching at the time, and then after that experience, I emailed you, but then like really didn't get to know you. I think it was the first CrossFit Games that I helped Mobility WOD. I met you.
Oh, that's right. I have pictures of you.
And Lila was
when you were blonde.
Yeah, I was blonde and had a bob.
Yeah.
And Lila was probably.
She was a baby.
She was so cute.
So that was 4.5 years ago because. Or 4 years ago, because it's like it was July of this summer, 4 years ago.
So it was, I'd been in touch with you briefly, but there was no like personal connection yet. And even then, I remember meeting you and I was like, man, this woman is extremely intelligent, like savage intellect. I need to like get to know her better. Then you published your book. And I remember like rolling through, so anybody listening, most of the listeners have been through great adversity in their life and are looking how to live in that new normal they have. And some of them already are doing well, and some people need that boost. But I remember sitting down with you, and it was before I even thought about writing my book, I believe. I was just sitting down with you to learn more about you because I was up here in LA. And I had a copy of your book, and I read the intro, and I immediately was like, I have so much respect for this woman. Like, she put her balls out there, ovaries, and put her life out there. I mean, you just heard where her family, her background, but there is a lot of depth and a lot of adversity in your past. And to put that and be as vulnerable as she was in the intro, like, really made a huge impact on me, because not many leaders do that. They don't show the adversity they've been through and talk about it openly, and that's life. We have adversities. But I kind of want to dive into some of these adversities that you've overcome, because that what really drew me to you, not because you've been through like a lot of these tough times, but because of who you are. Like, you carry yourself with such confidence. You're a mom, like you're an entrepreneur, and that is really hard. As I'm experiencing being a new mom and an entrepreneur, and being in actually a world, yoga, but you're also in the strength and conditioning world, which is very male dominated. I know you don't
I
consider
a really strange space. I think I've like
you create your own space.
I've created my own space where I feel like it's tune-up, so I'm a depot for so many different communities, and try to bridge a lot of best practices that can feed from one sort of tribe to another, without saying that this tribe is the best tribe or that tribe is the wrong tribe. I try to be a bridge builder, which is really the nature of fascia. It's the nature of connective tissue, to really be a connector. And so I really try to live that in my my purview. I didn't used to be like that, and it's been an amazing journey to recognize that we're stronger together, and that the more we can reach into communities that we don't feel like we have an affinity with, and to build that affinity, it's first of all, it's gratifying, and you start to overcome all of your own blind spots and your humanity, and it builds a better, on that personal note, then on a business note, it builds better business relations, just bottom line.
Well, I want to dive into, the way you do your work, in my experience, and using your tools, but it's not necessarily the tools, it's how you teach the use of them. That's what really struck me about your role model book, and then just you when you present. You're connecting people with themselves. And that's really been really important for me on my journey, because I have struggled with mental health, I've had an eating disorder, and I know we're going to get into a little bit of your adversities, but the ability to connect with myself and learn to love myself. And like, I kind of, when I do speaking endeavors, I literally talk about, what does that even mean? Like, I used to be told by a psychologist, you need to love yourself. And I'm like, well...
That's a really hard request.
Yeah, it's like, what does that mean?
I have a lot to say about that. Shep, you want me to...
Yeah, so essentially, like, I know now it's got to be an actionable thing for me. But I had to come up with those things myself. And then when I read your story, I was like, duh, this is very much what part of loving yourself is. So I would like, because people listening have either gone through major permanent injuries, loss, or change in their life, and they're looking to live optimally in this new normal, not be what they were, but be the best they are now. And I want to kind of dig into your story of where this adversity, and you've had many adversities, some of the key adversities along the way, and what got you into this practice?
Okay. Well, that just I even just felt my body language just leaning forward, and the ultimate like sort of noose coming around my own body, because there were many traumas and a lot of different personality, sort of by the book DSM-1, personality disorders in my family that contributed to my own historical trauma, my own developmental trauma, and I am still working to this day on making peace with all of it.
Yeah.
So there's never a day where there aren't triggers for me. And I think that whatever process you're in, whatever therapeutic process you're in, the triggers are always going to be there. And you may, in terms of your resiliency, you may be in a more buoyant state of being able to just navigate your way right over that trigger. Another time, your triggers are going to feel like they re-wound you. And so, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist. I'm an embodied explorer. So I am extremely in tune with where the triggers are arousing me in my system. And in fact, a lot of my work teaches that sensitivity to break down your own barriers so that you can feel your way into the patterns, the physiological sensations. This is called interoception, right? The physiological sensations of those triggers, and sometimes see them to the end, and other times just, watching them dance away. Just like I grew up in the Southwest, right, in Santa Fe, and we would move rocks, and you'd see all these critters that lived underneath the rocks, and they would scurry away as soon as the light was exposed to them. never to be seen again. You couldn't dig fast enough to find them. And that's very much for me the analogy of a lot of those emotional triggers that I come across on a regular basis. Being a new mom has been the most upending experience. So I thought I had really normalized myself. I'd done a lot of work, and then being a mother opened up a Pandora's box of really rich triggers. So I am back in therapy right now because I actually, when I saw you last in San Diego, had an unfathomable PTSD episode, which I'm going to talk about. But that it's like once a new wound clicks into the old wounds, right? Clicks into the developmental stuff. These can be very challenging to navigate your way through.
That kind of stays with you your whole life because the parents stay divorced and 2 separate lives, and when you live with either one, or if you visit one and visit the other, it's, it depends on how the parents get along.
Well, for example, one of my triggers is getting on planes.
Okay, so yeah.
So I see my grandmother, right,
Yeah.
chasing after us and
Yeah.
struggling, not knowing she'd ever see us again, gasping for air. And so it's like,
And you travel a lot.
I travel for a living.
So what do you do with that trigger now?
So I have my therapy balls, of course. That's one thing that helps to downregulate me. And I practice either deep belly breathing or abdominal thoracic breath. I try to make eye contact. So one of the things that, when I'm starting to shut down is I will just withdraw, right? And so I know that what will upregulate my vagus nerve and help to try to restore balance to my system is communication and friendly communication. So even if I'm not feeling it, I'll try to, do some that's kind of like, aren't airline personnel so fake? They're always like, have a great day, have a great day. No, it's like, thank God they're doing that. So even if it's not like this sincere thing, it's like they've done it to 400 customers, you just use that, use those opportunities to anchor and to find other, humans. I remember tremendous compassion showed to me by then I was an unaccompanied minor, as a little girl, flying back and forth between parents. Luckily, I had parents that could, pay for plane tickets. And, sitting on the plane, I had my wings, and it's just terrifying. Leaving a parent when you're then, 7 and 8 and 9, all those years. It's a very, very lonely, unbelievably lonely, because I wasn't flying with my sister, because we were separate, so we would be flying, sometimes we'd be together, but for the most part, and even if we were together, we were often separate because we had our own,
stuff. Down and stay still. And I've made really dumb decisions in those moments when I was unskillful, I call it. The unskillful years when the freak out turned into saying mean things or saying bad things to myself and just grabbing physically for anything to hurt something, and which was in the form of an eating disorder for me. And then I realized, just sit still and be calm and be quiet, and that storm will go away. And there are tools you can use. Sometimes just sitting still and saying nothing can be okay for me. And then of course when you talk about in your work, working on the fascia and doing the deep breathing and a way to connect the mind and body, so calming the physiology so the mind can therefore follow in suit.
Right.
That really resonates with me. And I don't think people realize that, because the feelings you have, you're a fascial expert, yoga expert in movement, but you're human. You experience triggers too, like everyone else. But people don't realize that connection.
Well, it's why I've raised the ball so high. Raise the bar so high. I've had to search out so many solutions to help tamp down my own anxiety or my own to manage my triggers. And so that's why I have not just one ball, but there's a whole slew of balls, and why there's so many different ways that I apply it, and they're portable.
Right.
Why are they portable? Well, so you can take them with you in your car. You can take them with you on the train, on the plane. And I know it's not just me who's using them for this. I had a girl who was just in a workshop with me the other week, my core immersion, and she had the Gorgeous Ball with her on the plane, and she must have taken like 18 different stories and showed all the ways she was using the Gorgeous Ball and just stayed calm on the flight. And just
So good.
It was great. So I know that it's not just me that it has become a snuggle pillow for a lot of people. And I actually have a lot of people that write me, they say, I sleep with it, and it brings me great peace. So whatever tools you use that help you to soothe yourself, that don't have the type of side effects of the majority of our chemical our chemical medicine chest.
Right.
So if we can resource our own internal medicine chest rather than having to rely on prescriptions to fill that prescription, quite literally.
Right.
And that is one of my missions for sure.
So, and for you, so going back, you got the flying, but another piece of your story that resonated with me is in college. I think it was in college you were you started using these tools. You didn't have these tools yet, right? Because you started YogaTuneUp. I don't know actually when you started it, but in college you didn't start it, and you were learning ways to self-soothe.
Yeah.
Because you were also struggling with
bulimia.
Yeah.
And I was anorexic around age 11, 12, between my 6th grade year and my first year of junior high. I went down to about 65 pounds. I was really short, about 4'10", but I was almost 100 pounds, so I was quite overweight for that age. But then I just starved myself, and I dropped a lot of weight, and I started eating again. And I guess my body normalized. Nobody ever really picked me up and said, "You're anorexic." But it never was handled, or I just managed to balance my eating enough so that I had this unbelievable dysmorphic perception of myself. And I started to use exercise. And I got the Jane Fonda workout, the Raquel Welch yoga video, and that was really my gateway to embodiment. I started to find my body, because I was not a body person. I had big glasses, and I was the reader, and I was the intellect, and I still am. But that was my welcome to my body home.
Yeah.
I started running, and I went to aerobics. I was going to aerobics. I was earning money bussing tables, and then I would go to aerobics class. I was the youngest one in there. I was 16 years old in an aerobics class in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was really weird. I remember buying passes, and people would it was very strange, right? Because it's not something a 16-year-old would do. This was in 1987. Or
did you wear the nice socks to go with the?
I had one. Yes, I'm sure I had a headband, but I had one shiny leotard, and I had one pair of tights. And I was I didn't have a lot of. Nobody had a lot of.
Yeah. Sure.
Now, I wear these every day, yoga leggings, right?
Right.
You had yoga pants every day.
I know.
Back then, you had one thing, you washed it, and you wore it the next day.
Or just wear it twice.
Yeah.
I was gonna know.
Well,
maybe.
probably.
In the Marine Corps, no one knows. County.
It all looks the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, camouflage on the inside. No, very good, very good. Yeah, so I started using exercise. Yeah, because when I was 14 years old, the stepdad that my mom had married, he took off in the middle of the night. Just took off.
Never came back.
Took whatever cash we had left, took a TV, took the car, and we lost everything. They were going bankrupt because they had built a business and it failed, and which is very complicated. It's a very political story, so I'll leave that out. But that was a very horrible time in our life, and then my stepdad couldn't face it, and my mother was out of town visiting her parents, and he left my sister and I in the middle of the night and never came back. And then the government took our home, and that was really harsh. So
High school?
This was high school. This was my sophomore year in high school. Yeah.
Wow. So did your mom, so from there, then did your mom have to move back in? Did you guys have to move?
We had to leave that house because it wasn't ours anymore. And we found a really, inexpensive rent and moved there. And, I just worked my ass off to get straight A's so I could get the furthest I could from the chaos.
Yeah.
And my, my mom was just like, I'm done. She was just like, this is all too much. I'm done. And she didn't want to be, she just, at that point, was so beaten down. And she went into a deep depression, I would say, and worked her way through it. And she bounced back eventually, and she's amazing.
That's awesome.
But when that happens in the middle of your teenage years, and you really don't understand the crisis of another divorce and what that must be like to be a 40-something woman, to have lost your entire life, and to have lost your second husband, and to have to lead 2 children, 2 daughters. It was, I sympathize with her.
Now that you're a mother, and
I think I always did.
You always,
I think I always did. I knew how punishing it was, what she was experiencing. And so I put my needs aside.
Yeah.
And I
Literally.
stuffed them down and threw them up. It was just intolerable to feel what I was feeling. And so that's how I managed it.
Yeah. Well, I know when I lost my mother when I was 10, and then my father raised us.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, he ran his own business and there were struggles in the business, but I don't think I really empathized, or I didn't know what he was going through or how to really relate to him or communicate with him until now when he's actually deceased. But being a parent and having lost, he lost his wife when my mom was 44. But just that experience, him going through and raising basically teenagers on his own.
Yeah.
So different, yes, but like my brothers were oblivious. They're teenagers, they want to go live their life. They were grieving, but they didn't know how to communicate well. And then my dad and I did, but I think now when I look back, I'm like, man, I wish I could have a physical conversation with him and tell him, like, you are a freaking hero with what you went through. Because I was just like, oh, he's still gonna provide for us and it's gonna be fine, we're gonna live in our house,
Yeah.
I was 10, so there was that difference. But yeah, like, our parents go through a lot. And a single mother having to fend for herself, maybe realizing making good choices, thinking she's making good choices, and then someone who may have been good just like neglected their responsibilities, which happens probably more often than we know, like whether it's friendships, marriages, neglecting your responsibilities, which I have a really hard time with. Those people, I kind of want them all to go to an island and just like do things to each other.
You and Robert can bond on that. Like, he is
I
like,
want them all to
he's
an island.
like, that is a line you do not cross.
Right.
Yeah.
That level, that lack of responsibility of taking care of your own, and it's I've, through the work I've done too on myself, and just kind of letting the world beat me up at times, and just coping through the eating disorder, and kind of not throwing myself into helping everyone else but myself, because that just seems easier. It's like, why focus inwards?
So
and I know that everyone listening can probably relate to this. It is so much easier taking care of your kids because they're so cute.
That's what I was going to say about one of my other fallbacks on the plane is, if I tend to them.
Yeah.
But it's good because it gets me out of my, in Yiddish we would say shvelkas, like the overflow of fear or of fear that comes up. So I know that that if I bring my tending human, the tending part of me,
Yes.
and if I'm alone though, that I have to bring the tending person to look at me and get real about that.
Yeah.
And then occasionally there'd be a seatmate that might have some claw marks on them.
Yeah.
If I
Oh yeah. No, people see me doing this, looking over, holding like this.
doing power
Even when there's like a little turbulence, I'm just like. But yeah, having Magnus around, he's like a human ping pong ball on the seat. I'm just like, sorry everyone, you can't really focus on all of the other things because he's just like. Most of the time he's fine, but this last trip I went on, I was like, oh wow, this is hard. When's this going to be over? But it does get you out of yourself.
It ends at age 4
Yeah.
when you give them the laptop or whatever to look at.
I was going to say one of the, so in terms of taking care, so I had a performance self-love, and we can wrap roll into that. But I have cried doing fascia work.
Oh, totally.
And I remember my father passed doing, my thoracic spine was extremely tight. And every once in a while it can get that way after stressful experiences for me. And cried, but it helped me grieve, actually, because I knew it needed to come out. And no one really, other people that have lost their fathers, right? I wasn't really in a state to like talk about it. If you're not around other people who get grieving, it kind of sucks because you're just like, you're not your like optimal self at those times. Like grieving pops up at random times. It doesn't make you. I remember crying with patients. Actually, I went to work way too soon, and I'm sitting there on the table with the naval commander, like crying, and he's like, "It's okay." I'm like, "It's okay. You can leave. No, I'm gonna stay and listen." I'm used to pushing myself, and I felt like when I did the fascia work on my spine specifically, I cried. It made me like think about how hard I pushed myself. Like my dad, when he really want me going back to work after a week in passing, when he was like the light of my life for so long, he was the mom dad for me, and I'm used to just going, and fascia work. And I consider that like that's a generic term I'm using, but whatever mobility, especially on my spine, really opened me up during that time. It made me slow down. And now as a mom, when life speeds up again, it like reminds me to slow down. But I cry. Actually, even now, not every time I do fascia work, but it's not uncommon for me to get emotional doing it.
Well, one of the things we say about the role model work is that it's really not, it's great. Sure, it's about your range of motion, but it's also about your range of emotion. It's
I like
about,
that, yeah.
Tolerance for touch teaches us so much about our ability to withstand care. For many people, it's intolerable to have somebody else touch them.
Right.
And
Or they don't like it.
Or there's just too many layers of guarding that are up for people. And so having another person come into your zone, your energy, your skin, your deeper than your skin, is a threat beyond all measure. And the therapy balls take that away, and then you can work with that, your own version of that for yourself, and empower yourself. That's why the role model is a play on words. This will give you tolerance for your own ability to care for yourself, right? Because especially if we are living in, if we're running from our trauma,
Yeah.
right? As those of us who've been traumatized, it's like, oh yeah, that's part of my story too. That's why bulimia was my thing, right? Or whatever other coping mechanisms I use or have used. And that lack of familiarity with that communication is what keeps us spinning out of control. So the therapy balls, this is, and so it's like, I'm glad you like my work because that's what's behind it. It's not just, oh, here's these rubber balls and these are the right balls for you. It's like, no, these are a way for us to relate to ourselves. And if that's been taken away from you by a parent or by an accident or by a war or by, any type of assault on your system, it takes a long time to build trust at every level. With you and you, and then with you and you.
Right.
So this is that gateway to being able to tolerate therapeutic touch.
Right.
And to develop a sense of not love for yourself, because I don't sell self-love.
Right.
Just let's learn to, like, would I borrow a cup of sugar from you? You know, like, do I like myself enough to, if I were my neighbor, would I ask, or would I go to another neighbor? Like, just be a good neighbor first to yourself.
Right.
Because, I mean, for a long time, there's no way I would have borrowed sugar from me.
Yeah.
I couldn't, I just liked myself so much. I just could not tolerate me.
Right.
I couldn't tolerate being in my own skin, didn't like me. And even though people are like, oh, you're so confident, right? I get this all the time. Yeah, but I had no self-esteem.
Yeah.
And so there's a big difference. Like that the performer in me has that confidence. That's easy. But the esteem comes from actually building a refuge and a relationship in myself that I actually like. And then maybe the love will come.
Right. You hit on, again, I feel like we could be related in a sense of how I've honestly learned a lot of this way of thinking through you and just self-study. And I mean, yes, range of motion doesn't motivate me. It's the tapping into my own emotion, and I want to be the best version of myself now, but I also was someone that wouldn't want to get sugar for myself. I mean, I remember sitting in my CO's office,
or gluten-free sugar, or whatever it is, like brown rice.
Anything, an egg. Whatever.
I don't want to offend anybody. Sugar's really bad.
Sugar.
We know it's bad.
I wouldn't buy any sugar.
I'm from the South. Like, we bake with sugar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
my best friend's a baker. Okay.
Eggs. How about eggs? So I remember in Fallujah sitting down with my battalion commander, Colonel, who I was like, he was my second person I told I had bulimia and needed help. And he was like, well, what's wrong? I mean, bulimia was just like, actually, so bulimia, I shouldn't even use that word. I didn't want to consider eating disorder. I just had a problem throwing up, and I couldn't say I had this eating disorder yet. I was just like, I'm all messed up in the head. And I was like, I remember sitting in his office saying, I hate myself. And this is in war, and I have a platoon, and I remember him looking at me like, if his eyes could tell me what he was saying, it was like, you're a piece of shit. Like, that's how I felt. I mean, there's no compassion, right? And I remember listening to myself like, wow, that I actually said it, but I felt so alone and so isolated. And I mean, since that experience, it was never an easy road. And the Marine Corps is a male-dominated world. I don't actually blame the Marine Corps, because the Marine Corps doesn't really know, a lot of the military doesn't know what to do with these coping, how to help people cope. They know what to do with someone who's an alcoholic, but when you have an eating disorder, or you're cutting, or anything else, it's like, oh, okay, get out. You're out. I think they're doing better. However, I remember I told this to someone I barely knew, who looked at me as this badass female who was doing all these things and like, you don't love yourself? And I actually voiced it and felt like humiliated. I mean, even though it was true, I felt humiliated. And from that point, it's like, I felt like the world extremely isolated. Am I the only one that doesn't love myself? Why am I dealing with these? Why am I throwing up? Why am I trying to restrict I felt like my life was over because I'd given up.
How old were you?
I was 25. But I had put my whole esteem into being the best Marine officer. And I deployed with an eating disorder because I didn't think it was legit. And why focus on something that's just an eating issue when, of course, it's so much deeper. Eating disorders, addictions of any sort are much deeper than the actual thing. But that road, what I have to say is, well, I still, the embarrassment is still held in my cells. Mm-hmm. And that can be a trigger, has been a trigger. However...
Well, the dismissal of it. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to tell those first few people. I feel you, because I was met with very confusing responses also. And, looking back now, being in those moments were just confounding.
Yeah.
If somebody shared that with me, I would never respond the way the first few people I shared responded either. And so I think maybe that's a unique, maybe we chose really wrong to share our, it's like my picker was off on that.
I think, though, it's not uncommon for people that I've talked to who've had trauma, because one of the big questions I get is, well, how do you know if it's a good person to ask for help? Because I've asked for help before, and I've been greeted with, crickets or whatever. And you kind of have to just keep pushing forward. If someone says no, turn to someone who says yes. And, well, those two people, so I like the Brene Brown, right? She wrote the book Daring Greatly, which I really love. She talks about the power of vulnerability. Well, you have 5 people or less, people you really can rely on for good judgment of you. So maybe you have to tell your boss. I had to tell my boss, who told me, oh, my girlfriend in college had that, said something similar. No wonder you seem a little off. It was just give me popcorn and, saying, well, what do you want to do about it?
Well, this is also when you start to realize that, okay, the circle of influence around me has no clue to my depth, right? So, or to who I really am. And so when you share this wound and this part of you that is asking for help, and you're met with these sort of sidestep answers that aren't addressing the you that's you feel really lost and isolated, because you're okay, so this is my circle of influence. These are the 5 people or the 3 people that I've told. And then what's next? And I know that we're talking to people who, are looking for how to exist in the new normal. This is part of the breaking through is building new friendships.
Yep.
And
100%.
And finding new alliances. And unfortunately, you're going to make some mistakes with that. When the old alliances are the people you thought you could count on, or they're not able to handle their own role in it. That's also what happens. Yep. Is if you tell your best friend or your beloved or your parents or your trusted cousin and they have a reaction, you may need to bounce away for a while and you'll be able to bounce back. But it's also their own stuff that is also potentially part of what's enabled you to stay in your disease. Yes, if we're talking about addiction, this is a whole other podcast. But so that's a whole other But building new alliances is critical for crawling out of the old normal.
I agree, and I don't think I realized that. I just tried to keep pushing people to understand in my little world. And I was a Marine through and through, so I had to have the Marine Corps understand, but it didn't. I just kept getting pushback. So thankfully, but the Marine Corps is changing slowly. Yeah. But I think for people listening, knowing that that's crucial, finding that new group of people or finding someone. It might be someone, right? It might take a few to tell first who are unskillful. I like the term unskillful because people just don't know what to do with something that looks different or something they're seemingly don't understand or uncomfortable with, they don't know how to respond. It's like someone missing them or in a wheelchair, they stare and they're like, what's wrong with you? Versus saying, hello, how are you today? Like, I want to know more about you. Like, what's wrong with you? What'd you do? What happened to that? That's an unskillful way of doing human relations. An unskillful way of, you know, I was told by someone I'll pay you to stop throwing up. Well, okay, like
That would have worked for like a day.
yeah. How much money? No.
Because then I could buy a lot of chocolate chip ice
Yes.
cream with that.
So
That would be
going
that's the
into
bulimic's mind. Like, how many
Yeah.
times could I buy with
right,
that?
let's see what that. Yeah, that could go the wrong way. I can stop for a day once a week. Got to crack it out there.
You
gotta have some
the
humor.
lengths we go to, but it's addiction. So
Sure,
you're
you'll
just like
figure out a
looking
way.
for the next hit. So yeah, you can give me that money. That'd be great.
One of the other things, and I have a few more questions for you before we get into like the practical piece of this, is, I mean, you've hit on some amazing, pieces of your story that have really impacted you, and ways you cope. So you created a business out of things, tools that have helped you, which I think is like a total badass, beautiful way to live your life. You're literally giving people you're giving to the world what you never had, what you created yourself, what you needed, but didn't have. And you're educated in a way that's so like right on point with what I need. And I know now that I'm not alone, I'm not isolated, that all the problems I've had, people have had them in some shape or form, and they need this. But you went through a recent, and actually, really quick to touch on the self-love. So the self-love thing, I see the tools. So when I speak on self-love to companies, I can't just I give the story of how, like, I've been told time and time again, you need to be gentle with yourself, you need to love yourself, and I'm like, all right, what does that even mean? But the self-love is, so the piece that I just talked about, it had to be actionable for me. Like, I like routine. Even though having a kid, it's like, that might look a little bit different every day. And traveling creates, changes in the routine as well. But I need to be vulnerable. I need to remember that my health comes first. Do work on my tissue, because if I feel very disconnected, even if I don't, just doing self-care work there, laying on the ball, spending some time with myself, is an act of self-love. Breathing is an act of self-love. So like that term, well, I really like it. I'm like, I need to find what it meant for me. And so the way I speak now, it's like, lead yourself first is a concept. How you do that is you do that through doing fascial work, taking care of your body. I'm not talking about working out, but I'm talking about like actually getting on tissue that's stiff and just getting into areas that are vulnerable, talking to someone and sharing with them your story. Like the first time I did that, I thought I would be greeted. Well, I wouldn't say the first time I asked for help, I was greeted with crickets, and you already heard that. But the first time I actually shared my story with a fellow veteran, I mean, that was a huge vulnerable time, and it was met with, oh my gosh, like I've had struggles like that, and I just like opened up, and that kind of led me down this path of I need to write about this. And then the breath work, like you talked about on the plane, like that has been, I was like, you're not gonna get me breathing, even though I do it, we do it. It's like, you're not getting me slowing down this thing. It's going a mile an hour this way, and this way. No one's taming that. And I was like, that's just stupid. Why would someone want to tame that? And then I realized, no, after learning the science behind it, I had to go to PT school to get my brain ready for this, like, explosion of science. I'm like, well, duh. This is how you eliminate pain. And so, I mean, it took me. I've been sober from bulimia since 2007, May 2007. But it took until when did I graduate PT school? 6 years ago to like get that in my brain and then actually apply it. Doesn't mean that just because I learned it didn't mean I applied it. So those are things that I call self-love. Yeah. So when someone's like, you need to love yourself, I'm like, Oh, no. There's actionable things to that.
Yeah.
And here's what they are.
Right.
But I know that recently, so you've had these invisible wounds that are still there that you're still managing. I think that's really powerful to know because you don't just arrive. Like these are things you work on your entire life. And they come up at different times. So to say that you're just going to be better after doing, a year of great therapy or self-care, like no, it's a daily process. But you also just had a bionic hip put in.
I did. I have a dual action. Can't
So
remember the
sick.
name of it right now. It was today. Yeah, I just missed my 10-month anniversary. So yeah, I had it done on November 1st of 2017. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have my bone. I'll show it to you. It's in my
Oh, you
office.
have your bone?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh.
A decimated joint. I had
Did you-
highly arthritic.
Is it on a
no,
shelf?
it still has the formaldehyde. I haven't researched how to get rid of the formaldehyde. Like you can't just pour that down in the drain. It's like totally medically unethical. So it's still in the thing, but I actually want to dry it so that I can feel it. But it's also been soaked in formaldehyde. So I don't know. Anyway, if any of you are medical pathology specialists, and you can tell me what's the best practice to get rid of formaldehyde, and
we'll give you her email in the show notes and website.
Yeah, so I'm a hypermobile person, and that was a big boon in the yoga and dance space that I was in for so long, and I just loved stretching, long held stretches, and if you gave me some time, I would stretch. Like I would not be doing push-ups or burpees or whatever. Like would not be something that I would want to do. I want to just relax because stretching, ultimately, when you boil it down the science of stretch, what it did was it would relax my nervous system. It would upregulate my vagus nerve and just put me into a deep state of calm and peace. So it makes a lot of sense why I used that or modalities that were stretch intensive to help soothe my inner state.
Yep.
So there's probably a number of factors that contributed to the arthritic hip, but I mean it was bone on bone when he ended up taking it. I was like, there's a perfect sphere of cartilage that had cleared away from both acetabulum and the femoral head. There's osteophytes all over it, and you can see how irregular it looks. What labrum was left. I mean, it was just, I thought I had a torn labrum because some of my femoral movements to me indicated that I probably had a labral tear, but no idea that I had this highly arthritic hip because I was moving so well because I do my work. I do YogaTuneUp and the role model, and so I wasn't living in pain. But there was a certain point where I started to feel stuff in my knee, and I was like, I should go have that hip checked out. Because I'm starting to feel some knee stuff, and I know I don't want to have a 2-joint problem. I'd rather have a 1-joint problem. And so it was a year ago right now, because it was last August that I had the MRI, and I was shocked, but I immediately knew that was going to be the call. It would be a total hip, and that just started a very big investigation into the right surgery and the right surgeon, and I did an outpatient.
Therapy?
Hip. No,
Or
I was in
surgery?
about 6 hours and walked out. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and and so that has been a really big teacher, and it's been a very big shift in my identity, and it's
How so? The identity.
Well, there have been. This is too big of a conversation. We'll talk another 45 minutes. So, but one of the things I have prided myself on for all these years is being able to decode the language of my body, being able to really have a sense of what my body is feeling, both on a proprioceptive level and an interoceptive level. My programs sell that. They talk about proprioception and interoception and the body blind spots. And here I was living with a diseased hip for God knows how long, and I had no idea. So that was very humbling.
Sure.
And
yeah.
also to be, but I'm also very proud that the movement, the decisions I made in the last 15 years about how I move and the type of training that I do has suspended me from sensing that disease.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting. So I find that a little paradoxical, and so that makes this whole like identity question come up for me. Like, well, who am I?
Right.
If I think I'm able to listen, but I didn't hear that.
So an interesting thing, and this could be a whole other podcast, but I think
Look at you get all doctorate, and all of a sudden the DBT sits up.
well, the way I think of it though is like, if we were to take an MRI of, let's say 100 people's spines,
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I like
80% of them would have some disc dysfunction
Yeah,
or
but not
something going on, right?
Yeah.
Not pain, asymptomatic. That doesn't mean that person's skillful in their movement, you know? It's just some people, for whatever reason, the way they cope with life. Like my father, he was like a wind-up rubber band. He could not touch his toes, but he could move boulders.
Mm-hmm.
And he was no problem. He would have no problem. Do I know if he knew how to access his glutes? Yeah, but he just like he, you know, that would maybe cripple someone else.
Right.
But you, I think that's kind of powerful in a sense if you've been able to, hypermobile means less control of joint motion, but you were able to use movement as you added strength training, I know, and not, but more recently, but your body was able to, it probably knew it had a diseased hip, but because of your ability to cope, like you use movement, you use stretching, you use tissue work to help stay away from it causing you dysfunction in your life. And then at some point it catches up to you, but I think that's actually pretty powerful. Like you, if it happened 15 years ago, if your mind was telling your body like, all right, there's a diseased hip, like what would that have done to your practice? Maybe that would have made you go down a different path. But you, like I have dysfunction in my spine. I know I do on an MRI, but I haven't had any pain episodes. I think I move very well. There are dysfunctions in my movement that I work on, but because I cope with movement and I cope with doing tissue work, like I'm okay. I think that's a pretty powerful thing. I think the one thing is, so now that your body kind of, all right, it's time, now there is a disease response, or now there is a response from the brain saying, okay, it's time. That might be a sign now to say, okay, I need to get surgery and find this new normal of this bionic hip that now has whole new capabilities. And now you have a whole new thing to explore. So I think the body is very resilient. Like you are a survivor and you coped with a lot. So maybe the way you've coped with the positive ways you've been able to learn to cope from these traumas have helped you stay away from this knowledge of having a diseased hip, because your brain is like, I'm not diseased, I'm fine. I'm going to work through this. I can move well. And then after a certain point, it's like, you know what? It's worn down. I'm ready to get help. But now you have a whole new leg, hip, starting at the hip. Not a whole new leg, but the head of your leg is new. So now you have this new normal to live in. But I think that the fact that you didn't know is actually powerful, because you're very knowledgeable about movement. And I think that's, if you do the right things to cope and take care of your body, that's what I'm trying to say, in a matter of like way too long, you can stay away from having to go into the knife or having to do get these more extreme operations, because your body thrives off of movement. It's born to move. At a certain point, potentially surgery is needed. Hypermobile athletes, they have it the hardest, I would say, because of just wearing down joints, being worn down. But you can definitely mitigate the need for surgery for a long time through proper movement patterns, strength training, coupled with well, you don't need to stretch more, but that was your way to cope. So I don't know if that made a lot of sense, but I think it's powerful. And actually, I think that for you, especially knowing you, and the fact that you're now exploring this new hip, which is not uncommon. People get new hips, people get new knees. It's definitely more common in the Western cultures, but you can relate now to a lot of people.
For sure.
Like a lot of Americans. And to have someone tell you, I don't know if anyone ever has, but that, to blame you for, well, aren't you a fascial expert? Like, you shouldn't have a total hip. Well, you're not human then. Because you're going to have everyone's going to have issues at some point. It's funny, early to get up here. And Magnus, of course, the moment I left, it's always when I leave. Like if I go to a workout in the morning, that's the moment he wakes up, and then Pear is in the room. He's like, every time the door shuts and you leave, he gets up. And I miss him. Like I've only been gone for a long time, and I miss him. So I very much resonate with being at home with your kids. And I think that your new normal, the way you live your life, the ups and downs, all of it is a very beautiful thing. And you really exude just the work, self-care work. You exude it. You don't just preach it, you do it. I really admire it. And so this is Jill Miller. We are, with the Mighty Normal podcast, we will be putting all of her information, email, website, so you can learn about all of her tools, her book up in the show notes. This is an honor.
It was so much fun. I learned so much about you.
Yeah.
I love her book, by the way. I'm such a fan of Teresa's book.
Well, I thankfully had this. I think that was the really first time we truly connected too, was she endorsed my book, because it was like, what better person to endorse Warrior was you.
So good.
So stay tuned. We're going to do a after show special. She's going to be helping me as a new mom with some of the fascial struggles new moms do struggle with, as well as the cameraman, Chianti, who will be getting some help as well. So stay tuned.